Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, really, to all of you joining from across the globe. Very excited to be here with all of you today. Welcome to the launch of Beyond Resilience, the rising cost of digital exclusion for women in global majority countries. I'm Sonia George. I'm the founder and executive director of the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Thank you for your patience with our beginning as well. Before we dive in, let me walk you through what we have planned. Let me look at the agenda. Carmen, if you don't mind switching the slides, please. Before everyone has an open discussion, we'll have our colleague Ingrid Brudvik, our Senior Research Manager, who will present the core findings of the report. She will be joined by the amazing Sandra Asang and Dora Boama from both Uganda and Ghana, to share some of their perspectives and critical regional voices from the findings of their research. We'll then hear from ITU Secretary General Doreen Bogdan-Martin with a very important message to support this report, followed by a high-level response panel moderated by my colleague Anika Makwakwa, including Pumzile Mlambo Nkuka and Malahat Obaid from Pakistan. Very exciting program for today, and I hope you all enjoy. But for those who are joining us for the first time, I wanted to tell you a few words about GDIP. So GDIP is a coalition of public, private, and civil society organizations united around a single conviction that connectivity is not an end in itself. It is a catalyst for opportunity, for agency, for inclusive development. Everything we do, our research, our policy, advocacy work, our partnerships, are built on that foundation. And so meaningful connectivity, that's what brings us here. And that's why we're here today. As digital transformation accelerates through AI, through digital public infrastructure, digital financial systems, and different kinds of digital experiences around the world, we face a hard and urgent truth. Access is expanding, but inclusion is not keeping pace. Meaningful connectivity for women is not automatic. It has to be intentionally designed. And that's a very important message for this report and for this launch today. Carmen, I just want to make sure that you are putting on the correct slide. I apologize. Would you mind switching? Apologies for that, everyone. Next. Next. Apologies for these, everyone. I started with my notes, and I guess the slides are a little slow. So this is the sequence of the areas for this presentation today. Starting with the introduction that you are just listening, we will share the research findings, talk about specific actions that need to be taken place for the kinds of things that we want to see happening in the world to support women digital inclusion. Next slide, Carmen. And so with that, I just want to make sure that we are in the right place. Okay. So why does this matter now? 2.2 billion people remain offline, as most of you know, and millions more are in fact only marginally connected. That means that while we are pushing for meaningful connectivity, that reality is really not the case for most women, and in fact, most people that have some kind of connectivity around the world. So they are able to access a signal, but are not able to use it in a way that changes their lives. And women, sadly, make up the majority of those who are left behind. So this is the reality that our report confronts heads on. And that's why we do this research, to shed light in that reality that really matters for us to understand how to move forward. Next. And so the cost of exclusion, why is this research important? Because this is not simply a digital gap. It is, in fact, an economic crisis. That's how we see it at GDIP and through our partnership. $1.2 trillion has already been lost to the gender digital divide. So today, as you see, 60% of users in the global majority are only marginally connected due to high costs and poor quality. And so without urgent gender responsive action, we are looking at over $511 billion in projected economic losses. And this is, I would say, even a conservative estimate. If we were to look at many of the missed opportunities beyond the standard kind of measures of GDP, which we are left with using as a starting point, you would see a level of economic cost and social cost that is even greater. And so inaction is not abstract. It is measurable and it is growing. And so we need to change that trajectory. Next slide. So what is meaningful connectivity? Just quickly, for those who are not familiar with this concept, I just wanted to remind you all that it is a framework, a more holistic framework, where we look at the totality of digital experience. And not only that, is a framework that allows us to look at from a multidimensional perspective. So when we look at affordability, quality and reliability of connections, as well as the supportive social environment that includes digital skills and literacy, content and language, as well as respect for human rights, including privacy and security, we look at all of these measures and all of these opportunities from an intersectional perspective. And that's really important to understand the experience. And so that's what we do in our research. And the results that you will be listening today are very much based on research that looks at this multidimensional approach to measuring meaningful connectivity in different countries. So next slide. So access is increasing. In fact, that's true because a lot more people are connected, even though at different levels of quality and experience. And because of that, true inclusion is really not taking place. So current digital strategies tend to focus on infrastructure, measure coverage, and assume that access translates into inclusion. As I mentioned to you earlier, that simply is not enough. And in fact, very much ignores lived experiences. So what digital strategies are currently doing really fall short. They don't ask whether women can actually afford to connect, or whether they feel safe online, whether content exists in their language, or whether they have the skills to participate fully in a digital economy or a digital society. And so that is why we need to measure meaningful connectivity. And that's why we also need gender responsive systems to deliver it. So get ready. That's exactly what this report sets out to do. And that's what we challenge ourselves to understand better. It was really a privilege, and it is a constant privilege to lead this work within GDIP and with all of our partners, along with my colleagues. And so I'm thrilled to now hand the floor over to Ingrid to walk us through what we found and what we also think and suggest that needs to be done to improve the situation of meaningful connectivity around the world and to reverse this incredible trend of continuing exclusion from digital society. So over to you, Ingrid, and thank you all.
Thank you, Sonia, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. So I'm going to take you through the main research findings from the Beyond Resilience report, and we invite you to also read it, share it, and share your feedback with us. The purpose of the report is really to understand women's lived experiences of meaningful connectivity and the social and economic costs of digital exclusion, and critically, what must change to ensure that connectivity is meaningful. So the methodology included several mixed methods, including focus groups, ethnographic research, and interviews with women and with policymakers in 8 countries. It also included a mobile survey of over 9,000 women across regions, as well as an updated cost of exclusion model. Next slide, please. So in our survey specifically, affordability continues to be the primary driver of exclusion. And this includes primarily the cost of internet as well as the cost of devices. And we know from research that women's digital exclusion is shaped by many intersecting barriers, including gendered time poverty and restrictive social and cultural norms. But in this research, we found that the top barriers and constraints are overwhelmingly economic, infrastructural, and systemic. And the data suggests that as digital ecosystems have expanded, connectivity now requires not just access, but sustained spending on data, devices, having stable electricity and reliable connectivity networks. And for many women, particularly in low and middle income countries, these costs are just prohibitive. Next slide, please. Of the women we surveyed, primarily, majority of the women had some level of connectivity, and we wanted to assess women's meaningful versus marginal connectivity. And 60% of women who are connected had only marginal connectivity across rural and urban areas. So women are not offline by choice. They are constrained by the cost of data and devices and the overall costs of participation. Next slide, please. Looking at devices, smartphones are the most commonly owned device across women of all demographics, far exceeding ownership of any other types of devices. But women in urban areas are much more likely to own other types of devices, such as laptops and tablets. However, ownership of other types of devices remains very low across the board. Women do have access to devices with larger screens, such as laptops and desktops and tablets, engage in a wider range of online activities at higher rates, such as taking online classes, buying or selling goods, job seeking, and accessing healthcare services, connecting with online community, highlighting the critical issue of device affordability to bridge this gap. Next slide, please. Beyond geography, looking at urban and rural, there are many other intersectional factors such as income, education, and social norms, which were also significant. Next, please. So in our survey, women who are meaningfully connected also have stronger digital skills than their marginally connected counterparts at every education level. And women with higher income also report higher digital skills, likely because they have better devices and more consistent internet connectivity. Next slide, please. And we found that online harms affect most women. And this includes women with tertiary education, meaningful connectivity, and excellent digital skills. And in fact, exposure to harms tends to increase with higher levels of digital engagement, suggesting that the platform design, governance gaps, and unequal power dynamics place greater risk on women as their visibility and participation online increase. And women in our study reported facing scams, fraud, harassment, data misuse, all of which erodes trust in digital systems. Women are not just navigating the internet, they are managing their concerns about online harassment, unsolicited messages, protection of personal information, and financial fraud, which often deter women from fully engaging online. And these harms create what we call a shadow barrier of online vigilance. Next, please. And the burden to stay safe online remains on women. Although many women who we interviewed demonstrate acute awareness of online risks and have adopted personal safety strategies, systemic protections such as effective reporting mechanisms, consumer safeguards, and platform accountability remain weak across regions. As a result, responsibility for digital safety is largely individualized. Next slide, please. Now we will look at some of the qualitative and ethnographic insights on women's participation and agency in the digital economy. Meaningful connectivity enables many benefits for women, and women's participation in the digital economy is diverse and expanding. And women report operating businesses without infrastructure, accessing markets beyond borders, engaging in remote work and online learning globally. Across contexts, women describe the internet and the digital economy as essential to their livelihoods, not simply a tool for access, but as a platform for opportunity. That is, when connectivity is affordable, reliable, and safe. Next slide, please. So let's look a little bit deeper at some of the lived realities as evidenced by our ethnographic insights. Women across contexts are using digital platforms as powerful tools for learning, growth, and community building. And while digital platforms expand e-commerce opportunities, poor regulation also fuels risks. And women reported misleading digital marketplace advertisements, counterfeit products, and the sale of unregulated goods, for example. Weak consumer protections limit the equitable and globally transferable benefits of the digital economy. For a few more examples, since the time of the pandemic, digitalization has shifted many public services online, but according to many women who we interviewed, many institutions remain unprepared in terms of infrastructure and human resources. Instead of making things easier, administrative services have often become slower and even less accessible. Most women rely on self-learning to build digital skills in the context that we interviewed. And women teach themselves how to use tools and platforms. So it's very individualized, and women rely on peers often for learning about new tools and apps and applications. And while this demonstrates initiative and resilience, the absence of structured training limits deeper participation and deeper capacity, and particularly in the areas of digital security and online safety. And lastly, next slide, please. So here we have a few notable quotes from across the regions, and I'll just highlight the last one on the slide from Indonesia, that the internet allows us to bridge distances, find each other, and to be found, especially within communities. And our research really shows that digital tools enable collective action amongst women around the world. And across contexts, women describe using online spaces to educate the public, to expand civic participation, and to strengthen their collective voice and advocacy. Platforms further provide visibility for professionals and women-led organizations, supporting career networking, partnerships, and advancement of women's rights. Next slide, please. In the face of exclusion is not a substitute for systemic change. And for women in the global majority, digital inclusion is not simply about being online. It's about safe, affordable, and meaningful participation that unlocks digital opportunities without amplifying risk. And a digital economy without the full participation of women cannot scale to reach its potential. Digital inclusion is not only good policy, it's also good economics. Next slide, please. So we have a call to action. Next slide. We cannot accept this deepening inequality, and the only choice is a gender-inclusive digital future. Next slide. The policy recommendations proposed in our previous Connected Resilience report 2 years ago continue to serve as a critical guide today, reflecting the reality that insufficient progress has been made. And we propose 4 tiers of achievable solutions. There are a range of strategies and policies that policymakers can adopt, and no single combination will be universally appropriate or correct. Policymakers should engage with stakeholders to design and implement the appropriate strategies within their context. Possibilities include deep investments, which utilize universal service and access funds for investment strategies, grand visions, which include national broadband plans and other key gender digital strategy documents, easy wins, which include, for example, gender data, which is a critical component, and policymakers can start from this level of research to take informed steps in the right direction. And lastly, scalable systems. Multi-stakeholder approaches can provide the foundation for long-term and sustainable progress, and we refer to some of these as scalable systems to demonstrate some of the progress towards women's meaningful connectivity when stakeholders come together. So as part of this research, we interviewed policymakers from across Africa and Asia to uncover deeper insights on the policy and solutions for addressing gender equality in the digital ecosystem. And this report highlights several actionable recommendations based on our interactions with policymakers. Next slide, please. Digital ecosystem policies and strategies. The policymakers that we spoke to identified fragmented governance and weak institutional ownership as core barriers to advancing gender equality in the digital ecosystem. Where gender is referenced in digital strategies, it is often treated as an add-on rather than a core policy objective, resulting in inconsistent implementation and impact. And so as we recommend here, you can see on the slide, some of the specific recommendations, but they really center around crafting holistic national digital gender policies, or at a minimum, ensuring each project has this.
I think we stopped hearing Ingrid. Carmen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear her.
Okay, let's just give her a second. Apologies, everyone. Onika, can you hear us? I'm wondering, I understand there's some complication with South Africa connectivity today.
Yes, I can hear you. I do think
Okay.
Ingrid's internet
Let's just give her a second. Bear with us, everyone. We apologize for that.
There
Hi,
she
Ingrid,
is.
are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that. My connection.
Yeah, sounds like South Africa connectivity needs some help, as we know. And today, unfortunately, it's affecting us. So why don't you carry on starting from the second point, because we lost you from there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second point is on accelerating implementation of gender policies. I think we need the next slide, unless I'm not seeing it correctly on my side.
No, we were still on this slide.
Okay, I'll move to the next point then.
That's correct. Carmen, can you move to the next slide? Yeah, there you go.
Perfect, thank you. So our next core recommendation is around acceleration, the implementation of gender policies. In the previous slide, we spoke about developing gender policies themselves. Many national strategies do reference gender equality. Policymakers consistently noted that implementation frameworks remain weak or under-resourced. Without dedicated funding, delivery mechanisms, and leadership accountability, gender commitments fail to translate into tangible outcomes for women. Next slide, please. Our next recommendation is around strengthening sex disaggregated data collection and evaluation for inclusive gender policymaking in the digital sector. In our interviews with policymakers, many emphasized the role of regulators in mandating service providers to collect and report sex disaggregated data. However, existing systems often fail to capture meaningful insights, and where data does exist, it frequently does not reflect actual usage patterns or broader social and economic impacts. So policymakers underscored the importance of measuring the social and economic impacts of digital services. And this calls for deeper mixed methods research, including impact assessments and direct engagement with rural and marginalized communities. Next slide, please. And our last recommendation is around centering communities and women's leadership to address local realities in digital gender inclusion. Although women often constitute the majority population in underserved and rural communities, digital initiatives rarely reflect their specific needs, contexts, or constraints. Centering women's lived experiences ensures that interventions respond to real social, infrastructural, and economic barriers rather than delivering one-size-fits-all solutions. Government and development partners should move beyond surface-level engagement and instead recognize and invest in women as community leaders, including educators, organizers, and entrepreneurs who are already using digital tools to empower others in their communities. Strengthening grassroots networks through training, affordable connectivity, and funding can create sustainable pathways towards digital inclusion. And by prioritizing community-led approaches, policies can foster trust, relevance, and long-term sustainable impact, ensuring that digital transformation genuinely advances gender equality and community empowerment. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, what must happen now? Governments must integrate gender into digital policies and implement these policies. Donors should fund systemic solutions, and private sector should design for safety and inclusion. Next slide, please. So our digital future will not be inclusive by default. It must be designed with women at the center. And this requires immediate next steps at both the national and the regional level. And GDIP will be publishing 10 country reports, which look much deeper at the gendered experiences of meaningful connectivity as a follow-up to this global report. Next slide, please. So now we hear from national researchers who led the research, the qualitative research in Uganda and Ghana. Sandra and Dora, we invite you to share your experiences. So let's start with Sandra. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia and Ingrid. Could you please confirm that you can hear me? I'm kind of in a public
Yes,
place,
we can.
so let me just
Yes, we
increase.
can.
Okay. All right. So thank you again, Sonia and Ingrid, for providing a very good beginning and also laying the foundation on the research we did on connected, resilient, qualitative research, especially. So I will be talking about the experiences from the research we did in Uganda. And this really presents findings that we did, especially with 3 focus groups discussions. And we had also 5 key informant interviews. And we conducted this between July and August of last year, 2025. And the research was really looking at examining the experiences of women regarding digital inclusion, meaningful connectivity, and the socioeconomic impacts of digital exclusion. So we are able to collaborate with women from diverse socioeconomic and also geographical backgrounds, looking at entrepreneurs who are running businesses in the digital space, but also looking at the policies makers, as Ingrid clearly stated it, looking at also the university students, the youth leaders, women with disabilities, the content creators, women in the informal small companies like the shoemakers, the farmers, and also those who are doing tailoring as a form of economic activity. We also were able to speak to the feminist activists, the elders, and also women leaders, especially who are providing digital and also financial education or support services to women entrepreneurs. We also spoke to about human rights advocates and women leaders, especially in the tech and digital transformation sectors. So this research really involved a lot of also social work researchers, the creative professionals, women in tech, the non-profits, civil society organization, the journalists, the academia, and women in the ICT sectors. So most of these individuals that we spoke to were some who used in ICT to support their livelihoods, especially using smartphones and a computer for a daily life. And majority of the women we spoke to were educated, and also some with also lower educations. Some also were really young women, although some were slightly older than the others. So looking at some of the key findings or stories that we were able to collect in Uganda was especially looking at the local experiences around digital resilience from Uganda. And what we found out is that when we talk about resilience, especially looking at the global digital inclusion spaces such as Uganda, it really reminded us that resilience is not an abstract, but it's also lived, is negotiated daily, and also deeply very contextual. And for the women who participated in this research, meaningful connectivity was not just about access to the internet. It was about the survival, it was about their dignity, it was about the fluidity and also the voice. So I'll quote one woman leader who was working in the civil society sector who captured it very clearly and said that my world would have paused if I didn't have access to the internet. It's the fuel that keeps our work moving. And looking at across Uganda, the women also described internet as a lifeline for economic participation that really enables them to be able to run their businesses without physical infrastructures, being able to access customers beyond borders, but also coordinate care work and participate in advocacy and leadership spaces that were previously closed to them. And looking at some of the digital tools was looked as a pathway to economic and collective resilience. There was this one powerful example from a woman in Naguru, Paris in Kampala, where she was a former market street vendor and turned into an entrepreneur and also an aspiring local councillor who now runs a shoe making center. So through some of the platforms that she explored, like Jumia, Safe Border, mobile money, she was able to support not only her own livelihood, but also collectively support women saving groups. And this was able to reduce transport costs. This was able to also enable coordination across the urban and rural spaces. And she said it, I quote, that we ordered online, waited, and everything was brought to us. And you could clearly see the joy that she felt when we were having the interviews. And also this story really reflects that a broader digital reality across the global majority, that women are using the digital tools not only as consumers, but also as organizers, as connectors, but also as economic actors, even with highly constrained environment. And looking at also learning from the leadership, from the innovations, especially across the margins. Another woman also described that entering the digital economy with no prior technical training, learning on job in a digital marketing agency, and also eventually leading in a data management platform that really supported last mile accountability for farmers and NGO was a plus for them. And she explained, I quote, she said that I was paid to learn. Within months, I was handling clients. And for me, it was joy to see the stories that they were able to share and the wins they're able to be able to achieve with internet and also digital economy as a whole. So this challenges really is dominant narratives that innovation only comes from well-resourced ecosystems. For example, in Uganda and across Africa, innovation really emerges from necessity, from informal learnings, and also support peer-supported digital literacy. And from a focus group participants that we also spoke to, describe the internet simply as a living library. I have learned everything from how to run a business to how to become a better mother. And looking at also voices, especially from the feminist digital storytelling, especially from the women content creators and activists. They say that meaningful connectivity is also about voice and narrative power. And a content creator shared how digital storytelling opened doors for her to partnership and solidarity. And she said that after posting just a few videos that she was able to capture, people were really very related to our mission and also started reaching out to their work. So yet these online spaces are not really neutral. Many women also reported surveillance, harassment, as Ingrid shared, scam, online gender-based violence, especially those who are working in human rights and feminist advocacy spaces. So these challenges really also resonate, especially beyond Uganda, especially also showing experiences shared by women across East Africa, but also other global majority regions. And one businesswoman owner also put it plainly and said that I didn't have access, internet access. I wouldn't be able to run my business and attend meetings or even get paid. So you can see how powerful access to the internet, especially meaningful connectivity, is important for women and everyone. So what Uganda study really teaches, especially the global conversation on resilience, is that it reminds us that coverage is not enough. And a key informant also clearly stated that if there is coverage but people cannot use services, it's meaningless. If there is connectivity but no devices to access, it's equally meaningless. So meaningful connectivity is across Uganda and the global majority. It really requires affordable devices, affordability itself, digital skills, safety, but also gender responsive policy investments. And one policy maker also concluded by saying that if we involve women, we can achieve digital transformation faster. So as I conclude, I would like to say that the voices from Uganda also affirms that resilience is not about copying, it's also about transforming systems. And when women are already doing their work, this then shows that what they need is to have sustained investments, is to have inclusive policy, is to also ensure that there's recognition of the local knowledge, especially from the global majority that is central and not very perpetual, but to the global digital resilient. Thank you, and over to you, Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. That was wonderful. Now we'll hand over to Dora for your talk about the insights from Ghana. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. It's an afternoon from Accra, Ghana, so good afternoon. And thank you for this opportunity to share the findings from Ghana. I think the context has been set already by Sonia, by Ingrid, and Sandra's introduction directly aligns with ours, so I'm not really going to repeat all that. I'll probably just go straight into the findings, and I'll just keep it quite straight with bullet points, and maybe try and cite some lived experiences. So overall, the study found that internet connectivity is very widespread, and it brings lots of meaning to people's lives in different ways. And the respondents from the interviews and the focus group discussions, as I mentioned, in terms of the who, Sandra has set the context already. So when I say respondents, I basically mean the interviewees and then the focus group discussion respondents. So in terms of what meaningful connectivity means to these women, they highlighted a lot from their work businesses to their domestic and social lives. Maybe I'll just pick a few specifics and then I'll try and cite some examples to that. In the area of research in particular, a number of them mentioned, especially those from the teaching field, lecturers, ICT professionals, and also farmers and teachers responded that they use the internet a lot in their work by way of researching about their work, improving or adding value to the work that they do. And one of them, for instance, actually a farmer, said that, and I'm quoting, at times the crops, because he's a farmer, she's a farmer, talking about the crops that she deals with. So I quote, at times the crops develop certain diseases and don't look healthy. I Google or go online to search for information about these diseases and how they can be treated. Sometimes I ask the agric extension officers who may diagnose the disease or the condition, but I also go a step further by Googling to find out more about them, and I apply the remedy. And this works for her as a farmer. And then it goes on to say that a vegetable a baker, for instance, says that, sorry, I'm messing up. Okay, yeah. Sorry, it's not a baker, it's a teacher. A teacher said, for instance, I am a teacher. So that so many instances where a student may ask a question. As a smart teacher, if you are not conversant with the question, I just throw it back to them immediately and go for my phone. And then she goes online to look for information to respond to the questions. And this is how farmers, teachers, business people, and students are using the internet for their work and for their research. And also in the area of parenting and home management, some of the respondents talked about how well they use the internet to manage basic situations at home, from health to home management. So one of them, for instance, cited a situation where she realized the child was reacting to something, an allergy, and then she just wrote about it online, asked about solutions to it, and she applied, and that worked perfectly for her. And since then, whenever she gets issues, she just goes online to go and look for information, and then she's able to apply, and then she gets remedies even before she decides to go to the hospital. Also, in the area of financial transactions, lots of women in Ghana are leveraging the connectivity to open and manage their bank accounts, for instance, and how they move monies around and how they track their transactions. And with that, they are able to manage their expenditure, avoid impulse buying, and are able to also track what they have used their monies for. And then in terms of, again, expanding their work and their reach, some of them use it for advertising and letting people know what they do. And through that, they are able to get more clients and more customers. So a baker, for instance, said, when I bake, for instance, I share pictures of the donuts or coated peanuts or whatever I prepare on my status. That's the WhatsApp status. I have gotten some orders through this means, and it helps in advertising my business. And a vegetable farmer also said, one day I went to the farm and I posted pictures of my crops on my stats. That's a WhatsApp status. And people asked, are you into farming? And I said, yes. And they asked, when are you harvesting your cabbage? I told them, next 2 or 3 months, they will be ready. So we were communicating, and when the time was due, I called them. They are from Accra, and they came to the rural end to come and make the purchases for the farmer. So this is how these are some of the life stories of meaningful connectivity to the women in Ghana. It is helping them in their research, in their education. And I think Ingrid did make mention of how people are self-tutoring, finding solutions by themselves. And one of them, for instance, cited an example about some artisanal support, where some basic plumbing issues and connectivity issues, they simply go online and then they Google it or just use any other search engine to get the information, and they're able to use it to manage some basic things. So in terms of self-tutoring, that is how far it is going in terms of expanding their reach and their advertising, and then also generally enhancing their personal value. And I think this largely shows how important internet connectivity, meaningful connectivity, is to women here in Ghana, and I believe everywhere else. If women across Ghana were all using the internet this way and even more, then when we talk about the cost of connectivity, I think people would understand it, that this is how meaningful women using the internet are contributing to the economy of the country. And if these women and many others who are not for now connected were all unconnected, then it means we'll be losing a lot, as we have earlier communicated, Sonia earlier communicated with the statistics.
That's a really great point for us to just take a quick pause, Dora. Thank you so much. I think we get the picture, right? That there's the issue of affordability across both countries that have been highlighted here, but the other 8 countries that will be featured in the report as well. This might actually be a really great point for us to plug in the message from Doreen, who is the Secretary General from ITU. Carmen, if you could assist us with that really quickly, and I will get back to the speakers after this. Thank you. Audio. We still can't hear.
You can't hear?
No.
Okay.
That has seen technologies like artificial intelligence.
Can you hear now?
It's fine.
Yes,
Yes,
can you
we
start
can.
from the top, please? Thank you.
Greetings from the ITU and congratulations on the launch of this report. As the global synthesis points out, 2.2 billion people remain offline, with women making up the majority of the unconnected. This is unacceptable in 2026, a year that has seen technologies like artificial intelligence advance faster than ever. What I love about this report is that it outlines the economic cost of failing to act, paired with practical policy recommendations on how to close the digital divide. This couldn't be timelier, as we just marked the 15th anniversary of Girls in ICT Day, and the theme Beyond Resilience aligns well with ITU's focus on digital lifelines this year. Let me offer 3 more observations I took from the report. First, we need to continue expanding our efforts beyond access to the internet. Meaningful connectivity, reliable, affordable, safe, and accompanied by digital skills must be our collective goal. The AI Skills Coalition is one of many ways ITU works to ensure that no one, especially women and girls, get left behind. Second, we need a deeper understanding of what digital exclusion looks like. As technology continues to shape everything from financial services to healthcare to education, being left behind becomes more costly and more permanent. Women, like Anna, continue to face deeply structural barriers, from affordability to device access, that limit their full participation in the digital economy. We need to hear their stories and to act on them. Third, digital inclusion must be intentional. Connectivity gaps are driven by systemic constraints requiring coordinated action across governments, industry, and civil society. At ITU, addressing these constraints is our priority, especially through the revitalized Equals Global Partnership that aims to empower 100 million women and girls as contributors to the digital economy by 2035. Thank you for this report and for keeping focus where it belongs, on the 2.2 billion offline. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Doreen, and thank you for that message. Hello, everyone. My name is Onika Makwakwa. I'm the other executive director at Global Digital Inclusion Partnership. Unfortunately, due to some technical challenges, we will not have Phumzile on this call. But Malahat, really great to have you. Malahat Obaid is the director for at the Pakistan Telecommunications Authority. And Pakistan has taken a really deliberate approach to gender inclusion, where including in ensuring digital and financial inclusion through a gender digital strategy that the country has been working on. Could you? I'd like to really invite you to share with us, because I think it's important for us to see as we talk about exclusion, what does inclusion look like, and what has this journey towards inclusion been like for Pakistan? I know you are just at the beginning, maybe midpoint somewhere, but it would be really great to sort of hear some concrete examples of what has shifted in Pakistan after you made a deliberate decision to adopt a gender inclusion strategy. Over to you, Malahat.
Yes. Am I audible now? Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Anika. First, I would like to congratulate the GDIP and the team who has put together this amazing report with such insightful data and a very good research. And I'm very proud to be part of this research while you were carrying it in Pakistan. And I was one of the respondents from the government side. And I'm very happy to see that the discussions that we carried out, the areas and the concerns and the considerations that we had left in the strategy or were missed have been very appropriately come out in the findings of your report that our colleague has just shown us when we started off with the report. So yes, congratulations to the whole team once again. Yes, I do believe Pakistan's deliberate approach towards digital and financial inclusion has begun to create meaningful change here in Pakistan. Particularly, when we started recognizing that women's exclusion is more of a systemic thing, and it needs a coordinated effort from all across the government, not only the government, but all the stakeholders that are there. So this was one of the important shift in the mindset of the not only my organization but across the government that pushed us to go towards having this digital gender inclusion strategy, which actually is we have gone through an approach where all the stakeholders should be on board and make whatever share they can have in closing the gender gap. They should. And in a coordinated, strategy or coordinated efforts that we should be using through this gender strategy. Then, of course, there was another strategy that the government was also working with. That was the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. That also had a very strong gender element in it. And, this strategy also worked as a complementing strategy towards our digital gender strategy. And of course, then there was a greater focus on women-led entrepreneurship that the government took. And then, of course, all the, telecom operators, banks, the regulators across, like the National Database Authority and the Competition Commission, and everyone started to put in their, chunk of how to reduce the gap. So, we started off in 2024 with an actionable targets and a plan for the next 3 years. And I also discussed while you were developing this report, we also discussed what we planned as having a grand vision and going for easy wins and going for a scalable system, and then what actually we faced while we were implementing that action plan, which was given in that strategy. Although, from of course, regulator is one, and then the ministry was leading it. So we did not face much of a problem when it came to our own sector and our own operators that we were working with. And then, of course, we tried to plug in all the sectors, across the sectors. We wanted to have the government participation as well as the civil society and the academia and the actual people who are going to be affected or impacted through the policy. We wanted to have them on board. But while implementing, we faced quite a number of problems. But and because of that, our action plan got a little pushed down in following the timelines that we set for us. But now that we see 2 years down the lane, and we see that we have sort of created the kind of impact that we were expecting in the in those 3 years that was supposed to be there, has started showing up. And we are glad to just give you a biggest example of our win is that very recently Pakistan has onboarded 8 million women online with their own mobile wallet accounts and the SIM on their own names. So this was one win that we have win. And then, of course, the product designs are now going to come up through this specific project that has been carried out. And then there are so many other projects that have been taken place in a number of areas, not only in telecom, but also in the IT sector, and then also in the education, and then the literacy that we wanted to give to the women who are not online, or for that matter do not know how to use internet. So we have these small wins and then the big win as well, but there still remains a gap of what the report is still suggesting about the meaningful connectivity that we are looking at. Yes, the connectivity is there. Yes, the access is there. The numbers are showing. A recent report from the GSMA about the state of gender report also has appreciated Pakistan's growth in digital inclusion, in which we are we have reduced the internet usage gap from 38 to 25%, and we are expecting this gap to further reduced in the next report that they are showing up. And of course, this impact was also visible in the statistics that were released by Pakistan's National Statistical Office. So these are the impacts that we see, and we are very happy that the low-hanging wins or the fruits that we were expecting, we have tried to sort of win those, but there is still, some areas where we need to really focus on. And those one of the most important area is that putting these women who are online to have to make an economic gain for themselves and then to the whole country. And for that, we need to tell them to have this to convert this connectivity into meaningful connectivity for themselves and for the country. Thank you so much, and please.
Great. Wow. It sounds like we have the early makings of a case study on how you actually operationalize. I hope you guys can see the Q&A button on there. I don't see any questions from our listeners today, but if you have any questions, please do drop them in on that Q&A so we can be able to have any of the speakers from today respond to them. Malahat, thank you so much. That was quite an extensive response, because it's really important for us, I think, after looking at the research and saying the things that we've been saying for such a long time, to see how that looks in reality in terms of translating to government leading and private sector as well as civil society collaborating in that effort. I am going to stop here unless there are any questions, but we can always come back to them and ask Sonia to step in and give us some closing remarks if there are no questions in the chat.
Thank you, Anika. I don't think we have any questions, and we apologize for, of course, as always, running out of time, but we want to thank all of you who joined us today, especially our wonderful speakers, Sandra, Dora, Ingrid, Malahat, Doreen. Pumzile couldn't be here, sadly, because as you can see, Anika's line is also difficult to hear sometimes. Clearly, we need to work on connectivity issues and meaningful connectivity so we can continue gathering, supporting each other, and having the conversations that will move things forward for women in the digital world. And so thank you all. Please engage with our team, send us an email, send us questions, look at the report. And lastly but not least, we wanted to make sure you stay tuned for the upcoming national reports that we will be publishing on the 10 countries where we've been doing research. And hopefully you can also organize discussion sessions, and we're happy to join you in your country for further learning and especially more action to close the gender digital divide. So thank you all. Thank you for your patience with our technical issues. We learn lessons as we go every day, and we appreciate you being here. Thank you again, and we look forward to engaging with you to change this picture that we just shared with you today. Thank you, everyone.